Hi everyone, welcome back to Law Study Kit. I'm Rabia. Today I'd like to talk about a topic which is very common that many people don't like their LPP placement or their articling position, either because of the area of law that they're practicing in, or the culture, or the people, or because of so many different reasons. And I've heard this from a lot of students, but nobody really knows how to handle this situation properly. And I thought it would be a good idea to talk about it. And, if you're watching this and you are in a similar position, to kind of guide you to handle the situation in a very professional way, or what are some of the things that you can do. Again, this is based on my understanding. Things can be different for you, and you might not be able to do all of these things. So unless and until, if your workplace is toxic and it's very bad for you, you should bring it up to either, your LPP placement administration, or if you are articling, then you can bring it up to the Law Society of Ontario, wherever you are, if it's something that's very, very toxic. But other than that, if you don't like it, then there are certain ways to handle it. And if you're interested, keep watching. I want to talk about 4 things that you can do and understand if you don't like the place that you're working at for whatever reason. I don't know what your reasons might be, but for whatever reasons you're like, I don't really like this, what should I do? So first of all, you need to understand that things take time. So for example, if you're starting a placement, it's been 1 month or 2 months, or if you're starting an articling position, and you've spent a few months there and you're like, what am I doing? This is boring. I don't like this, or whatever. Just understand that anything that you start new takes time to learn, to process, to adjust. So you want to wait at least 6 months to understand what the place is all about, what the area of law is all about, and what do you think about it. If you go to a new place and after 10 days you're like, oh my god, I hate it, then you haven't really tried enough. Unless, like I said, if it's a toxic environment, that you should bring it up right away. But if you have certain issues and you're like, oh my gosh, like, for example, like the area of law is very boring. So you have not tried and put in the right amount of time to be able to come to that decision. Anything like, for example, I don't know, if you start running, and you wake up every morning and you go for a run. In the beginning, it's like, oh my god, I hate it. Like, why should I wake up early, go for a run? My legs hurt. I have, your muscles hurt and everything hurt. But if you keep consistently doing it, you get better at it and you start enjoying it. So don't come to a conclusion right away. And I know we tend to do that because we just want, we want things quickly. In the world that we live in now, which is you can get anything by just clicking in, like, Amazon deliveries, you click on something, you get it the next day. With career, it takes time. You can't be impatient. So if you are in a situation, just remember, give it 6 months. And even after 6 months, it's like, I cannot do this, then you can take some steps to maybe, shift your focus. Or, when you finish your articling, you understand, okay, this is the place, or this is the kind of area of law that I don't want to practice in, so you look for something else. But don't come to conclusions before 6-month mark. Second thing that you want to be mindful of is when you're starting out as a student, you won't really be acting like a lawyer. I mean, you will be, but most of the time you will be doing the grunt work, which everybody has to do to learn the area of the law. You can't be a great lawyer unless you haven't really done the work and you haven't really spent the time and the hours learning it. So just know that it might be the initial stages that you feel like are not that exciting. But once you learn that, and a couple of years in, you might be at a point where you're not going to have to do all of that. But because you've done it, you have the experience, you can supervise somebody who will do it. So for example, in any area of the law, you have admin staff that will help you. And as a student, you might just be doing the admin work. And it's important to do that because once you're a lawyer, you will not be able to advise your clients properly if you haven't done that work. So I have heard this from a lot of students where they feel like they're not actually working as a lawyer. And which is, I understand that maybe you go into your work with this expectation that you will be doing that, but that's not practical. You can't really be at a point where, a lawyer is after 6-7 years of call, because they've done all of that. Like, they've climbed the ladder and then they're there. But just remember, you also have to climb the ladder. You cannot skip this step. And if you skip it, then you won't be able to think clearly because you haven't done this. And it's important to do this to get here. I don't know if this makes sense to you or not, but what I'm trying to say is that don't judge an area of law just because you're doing the grunt work. You need to do the grunt work to get up, and you need to do all that work to be at a stage where maybe you're just supervising. And I guess a lot of people just want to skip this part. So my advice would be, yeah, if you don't like it, again, give it some time, but understand that your life will not look like this forever. This is just these are just your learning years, and it could be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, depending on where you are. But at some point, you will climb the ladder, and just remember that. The last thing that I want to say is also look at your alternatives. For example, if you don't like a place or the area of law, what alternatives do you have? If you have nothing, then it's better to do this than do nothing. If you have something more exciting, for sure. I mean, once you finish this, you can go to the exciting part. But you need to look at your alternatives, and if your alternatives don't make sense to you at the time, depending on, again, your financial responsibilities, your interests, or wherever you are in life, you have to look at, okay, what other options do I have? And if there are none, then you can at least learn something from where you are. Even if you don't like the area, you still learn communication. You still learn how to be professional. And if you have a better alternative, by all means, try to approach that. But keep in mind that you might face similar issues when you go to another place too, just because, again, you're gonna be learning. So unless and until, like I said, if you're in a toxic environment where you can't even breathe properly, you should definitely not stay there, and bring it up to a senior or like your mentor. Or with the law practice program, I know that the LPP office is very responsive and they will talk to you if need be. So you should always bring it up. Don't ever suffer in silence. If it's toxic and if you feel like somebody's disrespecting you, misbehaving with you, or anything of that sort, you should bring it up. But I'm talking about all of the scenarios where that is not the case. So yeah, look at your alternatives. If your alternatives make sense, then for sure. But from my opinion, and something that I've done in the past, like, for example, like just giving you my example with YouTube here. When I started this channel, I was in the beginning, it's very hard to sit in front of the camera and talk for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you get tired by talking, you need water, your throat starts to dry up, and then you have to look presentable too on camera. You can't just wake up and start shooting. So in the beginning, it was hard for me to do this, and I remember like thinking about my videos a lot, like every single day I'd be like, what should I do? Now I need to do this. I wouldn't get my lighting perfect, and sometimes my camera's focus would be wrong, but I just kept doing it, and I feel like now it's getting better. So same thing, like even in law or any other profession, you want to give it some time and look at your alternatives. So for me, like for example, with YouTube, like I don't have an alternative. So I would rather do this, and I enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, those are my tips. Hopefully that they are helpful, but just remember that you're not the only one thinking that you don't maybe enjoy it as much, or you don't like this is not what you expected. This is very, very common, because when you watch movies and you watch your mentors who are lawyers 5-6 year post call, their lives are very different. They've done the hustling and all of that. So once you start doing it, you feel uncomfortable and you're like, why should I do this? I'm a lawyer. But it's very common and a lot of people go through that. So just hang in there, and hopefully that this will help you just put things in perspective. Thanks guys for watching, and I hope that you're enjoying the work that you're doing, and if not, you find something that makes you happy. Thanks guys, bye.